Shadow. Come to peace with your dark side, and it will never control you. The shadow is often thought of as the part of ourselves that we disown, that we don't look at regularly, we don't really acknowledge on a daily basis or in our relationships with others. A lot of times it's because it is unconscious, or we just don't show it. We can be aware of our shadow side, but we know, well, I can't let anybody else know this about me or see it. And so it's hidden from others, but not from ourselves. So sometimes it's both, So the thing with the shadow is that it has to be expressed somehow. It doesn't just go away. It's energy. It has its own energy to it, and that energy plays out in your life through things you may say, choices you make, who you hate, who you're angry at, who you fight with, which bosses piss you off. These sort of everyday things a lot of times come from our shadow side, our unconscious mind. Now, the shadow can be our vulnerable emotions, but it is a lot of times our more well, really, I guess it's just anything we are taught that is disownable. It depends on what culture you come from and what rests in the shadow. It's not a bad place. It is what it is. There's a light and a dark side to everything and everyone. It's the difference is like how much is it acknowledged and is it owned. When it's owned, it's not a bad thing. If it's not owned, that's when it can get out of control, because it's being expressed in uncontrolled ways. There's no understanding, there's no balance, there's no empathy accompanying it for oneself or others, and so that's when like really messed up things can happen. Really dark stuff, murder, rape, child abuse, child neglect. If something's not resolved and understood, then there's anxiety, there's fear, there's cravings, there's impulses. The emotional mental system gets messed up, and then that's where like addictions and just acting out against ourselves and others. So in understanding the shadow, we gain control over ourself and over our mind and over our emotions so that they don't control us. Now, the shadow in traditional tarot would correspond with the moon, which represents the unconscious minds and patterns that play out that originate from the past or like a past life experience. The devil represents the relationship we have to our shadow side when it's not dealt with consciously, when we become slaves to it and we are tempted to sabotage ourselves and others, and just really dark stuff that creates a lot of harm in our lives. That is the unowned shadow. If we own the shadow, then the devil, if you call out the devil and you see him for what he is, he has no power over you. And that, so that's the same with the shadow side. And then there's strength, which is a card that represents having control. It's definitely through, rather than suppressing it or like shaming yourself into, willing yourself into being good. It's more like sort of taming your shadow side, letting it be a more gentle process of facing, acknowledging, loving, nurturing the part of ourself that is acting out. And a lot of times I think inner child work can help deal with the shadow from a more gentle place, because you're dealing with yourself on the level of when it happened. If you're working on an adult parent inner child level within yourself, then you can sort of over time reparent that part of yourself that's you know, wild and untamed and angry or lustful or just wants what it wants right now, and that kind of thing. You reparent that side of yourself, and that's what the Strength card is about growing into who you really are through love and a gentleness rather than power and control. And then the other, I guess the last card would be the Tower, which is more about like what happens when you don't look at your shadow. You find that what you build in your life when you are unconscious of your shadow side, it will come falling down. It will crumble. The Tower is about, you know, being kind of sideswiped in the recognition that the life you were living was not stable. It was not built on secure foundation. You had sort of kidded yourself into thinking that it was, and that happens when we don't own our shadow. We think that it's everybody else that's messed up, not us, and we're totally blind to our own you know, self-deceptions and poor choices. And so the Tower represents when that is revealed, and a lot of times, you know, that's what a rock, you know, hitting rock bottom is a good thing, because that's when you can you have no other choice. You have to see your shadow, and when you start owning your shadow side, life becomes a lot easier. It really does. You understand others better, you understand yourself better, you're able to put things in a balanced perspective, and so there's a lot to be gained through acknowledging that you have a shadow side, that there might be thoughts and feelings and beliefs and desires that are not comfortable and do not make sense and is not what society tells you is okay, and you know, you have to block that out and see it for what it is and understand where it comes from, and you know, resolve to accept it about yourself and to be realistic about what purpose it serves. It's not about acting on it, it's about witnessing it, feeling it, grieving it, working it out, sharing it, finding someone who can witness your shadow side and still accept you and remind you of your light. That can be a very healing and integrating kind of process when you're doing shadow work.
Melodrama, so we can wake up the whole wide world.